Today's guest is Australia's most followed property valuer.
The smartest investors are sometimes the dumbest investors because they overanalyze everything.
After valuing more than 15,000 properties, Belinda Botzolis knows what buyers, homeowners, and investors repeatedly get wrong about property.
100 grand, it's probably what a pool is worth now. You might only add $60,000 or $70,000.
But instead of keeping that knowledge inside the property industry, she took it online, building an audience of more than 200,000 people by exposing the costly mistakes Australians make when buying, renovating, and investing in property.
Just because you put glitter on some poo, it's still poo.
In this episode, she reveals the renovations that cost more than the value they create, the warning signs buyers overlook, and the market trend Australians should be watching right now.
They think a new kitchen and bathroom will add value. That's what they think, but that's not what actually does.
But I didn't just want to ask her how valuers think. I wanted her to show us.
This is how a valuer would value your property.
So I gave her one of my own investment properties and asked her to value it live.
How I would do a valuation: 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 car spaces. It's on 358 square meters. The first thing I want to do is I want to have a look at the internal photos. It's on a corner allotment. More and more valuations are now becoming desktop.
Belinda Botzolis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Belinda, we're going to do a valuation challenge. In this one, we will pick up a property listing and I would love you to go through that property and show step-by-step analysis of that property of you as a value.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example of how I would do a valuation. And I'm going to give you an example on how I would do a desktop valuation, Deven, because more and more valuations are now becoming desktop. So this is how a valuer would value your property. And then I'll also explain how I would value it in person. And this might help whoever is watching this analyze any property that they're buying from the perspective of a valuer. So then they can understand what the market value is. And then they can also understand perhaps maybe if they're prepared to pay a little bit more. And obviously understand that since the May budget, the market has softened a little bit, and how we can analyze and understand if we've seen evidence of that. So then if you are analyzing sales from 3 to 6 months ago, how you too can understand how to adjust those sales accordingly, similar to how a valuer might. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
So here's a property that we just picked out. Now, the first thing I want to have a look at is I come here and I'm like, all right, it's got 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 car spaces. This is the land area. So it sits on 358 square meters. It's about 161 internal. Now, I know that it was built about 2016. We can see here what it was last purchased for. Now, this is RP data. It's through Cotality. You have to pay for this, Deven. It's a professional analysis. You can get similar information for people that are watching this on free websites. You've got On the House, realestate.com, domain.com. The difference with this is it's a professional platform and everything is together. And this information has been qualified with the Land Titles Office. So every time you buy a property and it exchanges, this is where it's legally registered and that's where it draws that information. So it's very important that the valuer has accurate information. You can get this information as well, but unfortunately you've got to pay for it. So I'm just explaining how a valuer would do it. And then we can come here and there's some other information about how the market's performed, some sales evidence, but I don't worry too much about that. The first thing I want to do is I want to have a look at the internal photos so then I can see what condition this property is in. Now, I've been doing this for 20 years, so I can really look and analyze to see the condition of it. Obviously, it's very different if you go in person, but I've been doing this very long that I've been training myself to look at things, and I'll give you some examples of that. So I can see it's a neat and tidy, double garage home, entry level, entry right there, some windows there. Nothing is standing out of the ordinary. I like to come across here to have a look inside. This photo was from 2014. garden is nice and neat. I can see there's artificial grass, so it's not real grass. I always tell my clients, just be a bit careful of that, because it's always well and good when you first lay it down, but after a while, you have to maintain the artificial grass. Weeds grow through it, the ground underneath can be uneven. So just keep a mindful eye of that. White pebbles, in my opinion, I love them, but I also hate them. I love them when you first put them down, but they can get very dirty very quickly, and they can make the home look unkept. There's leaves in it, it's dirty. So just be mindful of that. No big deal. Now we're going to go through. It's a pretty basic bathroom. This tells me it was a very basic build. I can see that there's no tiles around. Only tiles around the shower, the mirror. There's no splashback tiles. I always tell my clients, be careful, because sometimes water can get in behind the mirror and cause the mirror to go kind of black a little bit. I'm not seeing any evidence of that, in my opinion. From 2014, this looks like so far well-maintained home. The backyard, it looks like this has been added after. There's got the grass again, nothing standing out, nice and neat, well-maintained. The bedroom, I don't look at the furniture. This isn't exactly a showroom house. This could be the tenant's furniture. I couldn't care less. So if you are looking at a property, don't go, oh, that's a nice bed. That's a nice quilt. Oh, I like that quilt cover. You're not buying the furniture. Okay. So please disregard it. First thing I notice is there's an air conditioning unit and a ceiling fan, which is great, because if I'm looking at this as an investor, I'm thinking my tenants are going to be happy. They're going to be cool. They've got a nice, airflow. It's great. Okay. Fantastic. I can't really make out too much about the carpet. But I'm assuming it's in okay condition. There's a few marks on the door there, but otherwise, it can always benefit from an update. Carpet and repaint again the courtyard. So I'm flicking through, same thing, aircon, ceiling fan. I'm not sure that's a light or some type of ducted air conditioning. Carpet seems to be in okay condition. Paint is okay. Again, you can always do with a new paint and carpet. And these aren't huge expenses, so it's nothing in here that I'm worried about. As we go through to the kitchen, this looks like an original condition. From what I can see, the appliances are all there. It's got a stone benchtop, tiled splashback. Again, looks like it's in well-maintained condition. They've obviously got little kids, so that's why they've got these things on the doors. I know, because I had the same ones. I look at the size of the living. I always try to count the number of seats on the couch to see how big it is. I've seen some display homes where they have a 2-seater couch and a 4-seater dining table, and they advertise it as spacious living. I'm like, that's not spacious. What family has like a couch for a 2-seater? So I can see that this is a comfortable family couch. And the distance between the couch to the TV is nice and big. Sometimes I see the TV literally like right here, meaning it's a tiny space. Aircon, AC, good size. And even though it's a small dining table, I can see that there's still space either side of it. So I'm spending a lot of time, Deven, going through these. I do this like this, okay, because I do it so long. I look and my brain, you see me on an inspection, I look so calm. I'm looking through, everything's quiet, but my brain is going bang, 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 bang. Okay. The flooring, I'm pretty sure, might have been added afterwards. The only thing with laminate flooring is sometimes really cheap flooring, it might need to get replaced after a while. They do wear down a little more. Not seeing any evidence of that. So far, it's just like a pretty nice, standard, entry level, typical home you'd get for the area. I'll go through pretty quickly again. You get a lot of duplicate photos. It's on a corner allotment. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I can see that there's solar panels on the roof. This is fantastic. If you're someone that is putting a tenant in there, this is going to help, the tenant or even yourself. So just be mindful that you have to look at everything. This is the property here on the corner. which is fine because you don't have that many neighbors. Okay. We can see if we will get into it later. You are a little bit attached from the roof of your garage. Okay. So as a valuer, I would call this a semi-attached property. All that means is that, and we'll check the lot and title. If this is a property that ever needs to get the roof line adjusted or amended, you may need to talk to your neighbor next door. But other than that, it's completely separated. The only common wall is from the garage, which most people are okay. Okay. A lot of the times you have garages that are, like if you have a look at these homes, 2 different roofs. Yeah. 2 different roofs because you can see the 2 different colors, completely separate, where this home, the roof line is one. So just be mindful of that. As we go through again, more photos of the front. So I've got an idea of the condition of this home. It's pretty original. Nothing's really been updated. It's not in poor condition, but it's not in new condition. It is now being depreciated a fair bit, about 10 or 12 years worth of depreciation there. So we can see that the buyer may buy this understanding that, hey, I might need to spend some money to, freshen it up a little bit. And that's fine. So what I like to do is I like to zoom in on it. And again, I can see the solar, and we can see here with the roof line how it is. Oh, sorry, my apologies. When I zoom in, I can see it's, see that little gap there? It means there are 2 different roof lines. I just thought it was connected. So do make note of that. So if you are looking at homes and from the facade, it looks see how tight it looks here? Just make sure that you understand if the roof line is actually touching or if it's separated, even if it's a millimeter. So make sure you are aware of that. So this particular one, I'm happy to say that it's separate. So I go in and I analyze the roof line, 2 different properties. That's good. It's on a corner allotment. A lot of people like corner allotments. This is north facing. I always like to see. So we've got northeast. So you get that beautiful morning into the afternoon sun, lots of natural light. Where a home like this is south facing, and you can already see the shadow here, which means that you're not going to have a lot of light in the home. So for a lot of people, they want nice sunny home. This is a little pergola. You've got sun all day, which is fantastic, which I really, really like. So you're like, okay, what we notice is this is the new house and land estate. So we have a lot of very similar blocks of homes, all built around the same time, probably in similar condition. No swimming pools. I can't see any swimming pools except maybe one there and maybe one there. But in general, they're not really swimming pools, which means that is a swimming pool going to add value? Probably not, because the market doesn't want it. And the home is on a corner. So now let's have a look to see what's been sold in the last 6 months. And if we can have a look at this, so off and then on, the market has been pretty tightly held in the last 6 months. So we can see that there's not a hell of a lot of sales. See that? And we can also see in purple what's been sold between 6 and 12 months. So anything in red is the last 6 months, and anything in purple is 6 to 12 months. And what I like to do is I like to click on them, because this one is near your property and this one actually sold right next door. Okay. Corner block. This is only a 3-bedroom home. Yours is a 4-bedroom home. So I like to click on it and go, okay, well, location is almost identical. Either side of the road, corner allotment. Difference is this doesn't have that north-facing corner. Yours, this property does. So this might be a little darker. But as we go through, you can see that this has been painted and updated since it was purchased. It has a much smaller kitchen, but it's a white kitchen instead of a dark kitchen. So does this affect the value at all? Because people like it. It's a bit more lighter and brighter. The floors are not like a cheaper laminate. They look like a real timber floor. So this might add to the quality of the property being a little bit different. So I'm like, okay, well, this is maybe a little bit better condition or it's been upgraded since it was purchased. The subject property hasn't. The bathroom, it's been tiled all the way up. So I can see maybe this is a slightly higher condition in terms of the quality of the build, but nothing is really standing out to me. Remember I told you the size of the home? This is much smaller. So this definitely adds to the value of the property. Kitchen is smaller. Bathrooms are pretty much the same. Smaller block, because if we have a look here, we can see it's only 320 and the subject was 358. 4 bedrooms, both 3 bedrooms. You can see there 422. This is 322. No outdoor pergola. Okay. So nowhere to sit, nowhere to enjoy, even if it starts raining a little bit, corner allotments, smaller overall. So this is 630. So we know that the subject is more than 630. Okay, so now we have to try and find. So I'll definitely be using this as a comparable. We need to try and find another property. Understanding all that, let's do this again. Go back in. Let's have a look now and see again what's been sold. Okay, just around the corner a little bit, I can already tell this is a larger home because it looks like a bigger block and it's got a swimming pool. And sure enough, it's sold for $1 million. We go inside, we have a look. Okay, it's a much bigger block. And you can already tell it's a much higher condition, improvement, swimming pool, bigger yard, bigger al fresco. So I don't really need to, much bigger kitchen. So I don't really need to understand too much in the sense that, of course, this is a lot more expensive. I go through the photos real quick, click, click, click. Again, smaller. The bathroom doesn't have full tiles, so maybe it's a slightly cheaper build, but it is larger. Huge. Look at the size of that bedroom. So huge bedroom, much bigger, much more valuable. So now I know that your home, or the home that we analyzed, obviously worth more than 630, but less than $1 million. We need to also understand that this sold in April, which was after the 2 interest rate rises that we had, but it was before the budget announcement. So we have seen a little bit of softening since then, if any. So this home now won't be worth very high 9s or about $1 million. So that's how we kind of adjust. So when we are comparing, we don't say, well, that sold for $1,015,000. You kind of think, well, that shouldn't have sold around sort of high 9s or $1 million when you start adjusting. I continued to do this several times with a whole bunch of sales. And then I go, okay, that's 3 bedrooms. This is a 4-bedroom home, a little bit bigger allotment, north-facing backyard. This one did sell in August last year, so we've got to adjust for the price there. Go through similar type, flooring, maybe a little bit bigger, similar overall. So without getting into too much, your property might sit around that because that would have come back a little bit. It's a much stronger market last year. So that property would be, considering those 3 sales, I maybe put 765 or 760 on that property. So this is me doing this in about 10 minutes. But what I do is, as you can see, I try to analyze every property. Yes, north facing, not at the corner allotment, bigger land, a little bit bigger property, sold last year, pull it back. So that again might bring your property to, it's very close, north facing backyard, not in a corner. So you see how it's little bit column A, little bit column B, little bit column B, little bit column B. You're trying to constantly analyze your that property maybe needs a little bit of work, a little bit tired. This property's a bit more updated. So again, then I start going back to my sales. Well, maybe it's closer to 745 to 750 instead of 765 because I've got to bring it back. And I hope you can see that when you have an area like this, where they're all relatively similar. And I know obviously I'll have a look at this sale and that sale and that sale and and trying to analyze and understand, this is a corner allotment, but it's on the corner of a main road. So this sale is going to be very different. I get. Sometimes when it's 0, I ignore because it's probably between a related party or not within market parameters. 888, much bigger block, and it's on a main road. And I can already tell it's a bigger, maybe nicer property. Again, I'll adjust that back. Happened in February. Another corner block, corner with a main road. Bigger allotment, only 3 bedrooms, much nicer landscaping, bigger block, 850. So you can see how I'm constantly analyzing, jumping in, having a look, and doing it that way. Have a look. Okay, so let's have a look. So you can see straight away it's a beautifully presented property. We go in. It's got double vanity. It's so far we can see it's got curtains. The carpet is almost new. It's in beautiful condition. Let me see. It was built in 2013. A larger block. Let's go through the photos again. Bigger kitchen, nice kitchen. So you can start seeing, outdoor fireplace, large fresco. This property, it's like it's got the pelmets around the curtains. It's got a second living area on. Again, the outdoor area, see if there's any big living area. So you can start seeing sometimes the difference. Okay. So we have the master bedroom. We have bedroom. Oh, no, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Again, this is what I've got to always check as well. You can kind of see, even with the kitchen, that had a little butler's pantry. That one. Where is it? It's fine. See in the kitchen, it had a little butler's pantry, large kitchen living, the alfresco with the fireplace, 3 bedrooms, a theatre room, ensuite with the double basin. So it is a little bit nicer. So you can start to then again analyze it. This sold very recently. So it's a very recent sale. Okay. It happened after the budget. It happened after the interest rate rises. So it's a really good analysis. Larger block, 4 bedrooms. That's wrong. Really nice. It's got curtains. It's got you can tell the quality. The front yard, it's been actually landscaped beautifully. It's got a little water feature, corner block. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a display home, and I can see when it was sold. I don't have the vendor's name. Sometimes I can tell, but this just says maybe it was like a display home. And see the furniture? I reckon this was the display home from the builder. And usually when it is a display home from the builder, they do it because they this looks more of a showcase home. See this? I can always tell. And the fireplace outside, yeah. So yeah. So this is a definitely a higher quality home. And that's quite a premium's being paid, even though it is on that main road. But one thing you can notice too is it does have access through here, so not off the main road. But still, it's on a busy corner. So yeah, and it does have that north. This one has a northwest aspect. Yeah. So I hope that was insightful.
Belinda, after having valued more than 15,000 properties in Australia, what is the biggest lie that Australians believe about property?
So it's a bit hard, I guess, when you ask what they get wrong because I don't think any buyer or I guess when you're selling your home, you are, and it doesn't matter how many times you do it, you are 100% confident because it's a very nerve-wracking thing to make sure, am I paying the right price? Am I going to make money from this asset? Is this the right decision? I've done my research, but am I 100% correct? And even if you are 90% confident, there's always sometimes that 10% doubt or that, 5% kind of niggling feeling. And that's even for the most experienced investors and valuers. But I think a lot of the time, what a lot of people get wrong, what I've seen, is they overthink things way too much. Okay, they think about it too much instead of just going with the property that they need to buy. They think they need to buy it and then they buy it, and sometimes it's not the right one for them because they overthink it. I've said this before, Deven. It is sometimes and I say this, with a smile on my face. The smartest investors are sometimes the dumbest investors because they overanalyze everything and then they don't actually go ahead and buy, or they buy the wrong property because they're thinking about it too much and then they overthink it. And sometimes I say this again with a smile on my face, the dumbest investors, because they don't overthink it. They just go, right, I've got this much money, this is the right property I need to buy, and then they just go and then they commit. So sometimes you can have too much of an analysis paralysis, and I see that time and time and time again.
Right. So what do you think is the best way for people to navigate around this complex issue? Because I can totally relate to it myself. I have multiple investment properties, and I'm the kind of exactly that persona where I just tend to overanalyze something because I'm just very risk averse and I don't want to make any mistake, because obviously it's a very huge investment, and any wrong decision can turn it into a really bad investment.
Yeah, I think my advice there is really understand what you want rather than what you think you need, because you're watching so many things on social media, or you hear what your friends are buying. There's been, and obviously as we're filming this podcast, we've had a lot of changes in the budget that have just come. So a lot of people are now chasing perhaps brand new properties because, with the brand new properties, you get the negative gearing. Is that really the right property for you? Or are you buying it because you think you need to buy it because you think you need to do the negative gearing because it's a brand new property? Or are you buying it because it truly is the right property for you to buy? So sometimes it's about understanding where you are in your investment journey, what you want that property to do for you, and understanding it for yourself, not because if you are working with a buyer's agent or you are working with an investment strategist, just understand that sometimes those investment strategists, they have a strategy that, yes, works for you, but also works for themselves, because then they've got to, source that property for you. So it's about being in control and pushing back and understanding what you want the whole way through.
Right. Now moving on to like how valuers think, right? What do valuers see that average Australians don't?
We don't just look at the property as, I guess, we look at it as a whole and not just as, I guess, a superficial asset. And I guess it depends, Devin, if you're looking at it as an investor, you're looking at it as a home owner. So when I value, or when all valuers value for the bank, they are looking at much more than just, has it got 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms? Do I like it? Could I live there? Or I want to buy in this area. I want to get this type of return. I need a 3-bedroom house. Yeah, this will do. I'm just going to. We look at it from the lens not only of the type of property it is, but what kind of risk does this property produce to the general market? Meaning, is it on a main road? Is it near a school? Is there an easement in the backyard? What kind of zoning does it have? What sort of potential does it have? Because, for instance, let's take you and I, for instance, you might like to live opposite a school because you have young kids and it's very easy for you to drop them off and pick them up, and it's a fantastic school. Now, I might be in my 50s and my kids are grown up. They moved out of the house. I don't want to live near a school. Every morning, every afternoon, cars coming up, cars coming down, kids walking, bells ringing, announcements going off. I'm going to remove myself from the market and say that house isn't for me. So as a valuer, we analyze not just the house. It could be a fantastic house, but you might isolate your market a little bit because there are certain people that will just never be interested in this property. And we make sure that we have a look at not just is it a great house, but what other factors in the market outside of the house play a part in the overall value that somebody is going to pay or put on. And that's how a valuer, I guess, thinks.
Things, right? And there's also a very common scenario where many times it has happened, particularly as well as with me, that we have ended up offering a certain price to the seller, but after the bank values it, it actually ends up valuing lesser than what we offered. So why does this happen?
It's because I guess everybody puts their own figure on a property, and that's why we have market value. And market just comes down to the people. The market is literally made up of every single person that gave up their Saturday to walk through that property. And the value part is what value do they put on the property? And then it's the that value market put a value on it, market value, and then that depends if the owner will accept it. Now, sometimes people in the marketplace can put a premium on that property because we have a very tight market at the moment, Deven. So we have a lot of properties right now that are very tight, meaning there is more buyers perhaps or more demand than there is stock on the market. We've seen a little bit of change since the budget was announced. But if somebody's been in the market for a while, they're over it. They just want to settle on something. They put an offer in. They know it's a little strong. Yeah. The valuer can't justify it. The valuer will put what they think the market should have paid for. They know that it could potentially sell for a little bit more, but they can't justify it to the bank. The bank has relied on the valuer to tell them what it's worth so they can lend money. Okay, it's almost like a best friend coming to you and going, "Can I borrow $1,000?" And you're like, "How do I know you're going to pay me?" "Oh, it's almost like in exchange. It's like, well, I'm going to give you my watch. It's worth $1,000, and if I don't pay you back, you can sell my watch." All right. You're probably going to get that. You're not going to take his word for it. You're probably going to go out and get it assessed, right? You're going to do some research and check to see what other watches are selling in the market. And you're like, "No, the best, took it to a watchmaker. It's got a few scratches on it. It's not in brand new condition. The best the market would probably pay you $950, not $1,000. What else can you do for me?" And it's this exact same concept as a bank with a valuer. We are the ones that are telling the bank, almost like worst case scenario, you might get $1,000 for that watch. You might, but chances are if it went for sale, you're going to get $9. And that's the same concept that if you think you bought it for $1 million, but when you start comparing it to other properties, it looks like it's probably worth $950. Perhaps you saw more value. You put $1 million in, and it's the valuer's job for the bank to come back and say, "Well, there's been some evidence in the market's not quite there yet. Might be there in a few months because the market's increasing and going up, but for now, not there yet."
And could there be a situation where the bank could actually be wrong in this case?
Because it's personal opinion. Yeah. So as a valuer, just given my experience, it's like a mechanic. It's like a doctor. I'm sure everybody has this experience where they've gone, you're sick, and you go to 3 different doctors, and one doctor's like, "We need to go in for surgery." And the other doctor's like, "Yeah, we could go for surgery, but we could also try this treatment." Go to a third doctor and they could say, no treatment, no this, no that. It's actually something else entirely. We've got to do some more tests. So as human beings, we all have our opinion. We have different way of analyzing things. So it's not that is the valuer wrong. It's how have they analyzed with their skills. Yeah. Again, you can go to, you could get 5 different lawyers defending you for the same case at court. One gets you off, one gets you guilty, one gets you, a longer conviction, shorter conviction. It's just how that professional represents your property to the bank, and it's their opinion at the end of the day.
Right. And let's say, as a valuer, when you walk into a property, what is the first thing that you notice as a valuer?
First thing we notice is the facade, Devin. Obviously, how the property presents, we take note of that. We take note of the street. So for anybody that is buying a property and physically inspecting, just take a moment to walk up and down the street a little bit, have a look at the other houses. Are they well presented? Are we seeing, a couple of homes being knocked down, rebuilt? Is there a few tradie cars? Is there a plumber, an electrician working on a Saturday or during the week, meaning that home's being renovated? When you spend money on a property, it generally means that there is like renovations being done to the street's getting gentrified. So it's all sorts of things that I'd say we don't look at before we go into a property. Then the facade of the home, does it need a lot of work? Is it maintained? How's the garden? Did they just the grass and not spend any time, fixing or investing in the garden? And then usually a well-maintained home from the front filters through the property. Okay, if you take the time to cut your grass, weed your garden, look after your front yard, paint the facade, clean the cobwebs, really, really present the home, then typically you take the same pride and same care throughout the property. So that would be the answer to the first thing we notice is definitely how well the home's presented from the front. And then we notice the floor plan, the condition, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, the flow of the property, the orientation, the land size as we walk through the home.
Right. And what do you think, according to you, most buyers overlook?
Most buyers, I think they overlook, honestly, if you're buying a home for yourself to live, they overlook storage. They overlook really the size and the flow of the bedrooms. A lot of the times they walk in and they might stick their head in and go, oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, that's good. And then they just keep walking. Go into the room, have a look at each corner. Physically thinking about where are you going to put the bed? Where are you going to put the bedside tables? I've got a king bed. Does this fit a king bed? If it fits a king bed, does it fit my bedside tables? If it fits my bedside tables, where am I going to put my clothes? Is this cupboard large enough for me? I really wanted an ensuite. Can I convert another space into an extra bathroom? So really understanding how you are going to use and live and put your furniture in a property, because people move in and they're like, we looked at it once, we looked at it again, and then we quickly bought it. And if I know what I know now, I wouldn't have bought it. So really, really analyze every room. If the open house is between 10:30 and 11, get there at 10:29, leave there at 11:01. Spend the whole time. Go to a midweek inspection. See the home at different times of the day. If you're an investor, really analyze and look at the property and think about perhaps when this home may need some capital works in the future to renovate. Because people buy cheap, but usually cheap comes with a lot of work, or it's okay now, but in 10 or 15 years' time, you're going to need a massive renovation again. That's going to add definitely to a lot of. So people oversee and they underestimate maintenance sometimes and how functional they are for themselves.
Right. And what's the biggest disconnect of what buyers think would be valuable in a house compared to what a valuer like you thinks would be valuable in the house, in any property?
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate exactly how much work a home needs in order to truly add value, okay? Because if you have a really good home and it's got a really nice floor plan and it gives the market what the market wants, for instance, if you have a home that already has 4 bedrooms, already has 2 bathrooms and the kitchen, the living and the dining, in an okay position in the house. It's not like it's at the front of the house, you got to, open it up. But the floor plan, actually, that is usually the best way to add the most amount of value, because you're not physically knocking down walls. Because the cost of construction is extremely. So a lot of people think, we'll knock that down, we'll open this up, we'll move that there, we'll change that there. And then in my head, all I think is cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. The price keeps going up. And I think, you've only really got $100,000 or $200,000 to make in this property before you overcapital. But these renovations that you're telling me are maybe going to cost you $300,000 or $400,000. So if you want to get a home that you're wanting to add value, the less you touch and the less you fiddle with your home, meaning if you're going to redo the bathroom, keep the taps exactly where they are, okay? Think about how you're going to renovate that bathroom, because if you're like, I'm going to put the shower from that side to that side and bathtub and this and that and underfloor heating, and all these costs don't necessarily add back in value. Same as the kitchen. I'm going to have a butler's pantry. I'm going to curve this wall, knock this down. If you left the kitchen exactly how it is and just literally replaced it, kept everything, the PowerPoints, everything as is, it's more likely that the home might be able to get renovated and absorb more because you're lower. So people see a lot of these renovation shows, Deven, and they think, oh yeah, look, I can add all this extra money as well. But sometimes it's, unless your house can really go up in a lot of value, you've got to be really careful because the cost of construction can cancel a lot of that out.
Can you give me a real example on this?
Okay, because what I do for work is my business name is Add Valuer. So I help people add value because I'm a valuer. Many examples. I had a client wanted to buy a property in Melbourne, okay, yellow card. Now they said to me, hey, Belle, do we buy this property and spend $400,000 or $500,000 on it? And if we spend $400,000 or $500,000 on it, we know that we are going to pretty much get whatever we want. Okay. The wife wanted a big walk-in room. She wanted an ensuite. He works from home. He wanted an office, beautiful kitchen, blah, blah, blah. He's in construction. So this would have been a $600,000 or $700,000 renovation because it was almost, knockdown rebuild territory. But he reckons he could do it for $550,000. Or do we get this property that's an extra $500,000 more? And what do you think this is worth? Because if we buy this, then we can move straight in. There's no downtime. There's no renovating. But we don't 100% get what we want. What should we do? So we run through the analysis and I tell them, if you are confident that you can get this house for this much money, and I guided them, I said, I know that they're quoting more, but if you can go into auction and get it for this price between here and here and spend $550,000, you will absolutely make some money on this. But if you pay more for it and you aren't as confident as you think you are right now on the cost of the construction, and it actually blows out to $600,000 or $700,000, even though you thought it was $550,000, you won't make any money. So this was an example of something where I really helped them understand exactly how much they can add. And then I said to them, otherwise, the other home, this is how much it's worth. This is how much you should pay. If you don't get everything you want, then go and renovate and get everything. But be very, very careful. You can easily overcapitalize.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And can the exact same property be worth very different amounts to different buyers?
Correct. Yes. I've seen it. Just go to any given auction, Deven, and you might have 5 registered bidders, and you might have all 5 bidding, bid, and then say it slows down at 2 million and 3 buys instantly, because that's where all 3 buyers saw value. These 2 buyers kept bidding, and then all of a sudden at 2.1, they really slow down, because then these 2 buyers only see value at 2. Okay, but they really want it. So then they start going by $1,000, $500, because they know that what 2.1 was their limit, and anything after that, they're just fighting with it. So that's why sometimes you see weird prices like $2,117,000 and $43, because somebody's like another fight. Like there's all sorts of weird stuff that they do at auction. But that shows you that a lot of the market saw value at 2 million. Some of the market saw value at 2.1, but only one person saw value. So that is really common. And that gives you an idea about how 2 different valuers can also see 2 different value in a property, because I might have been like, I only see value at 2 million, but the other value was like, well, I can see how you can potentially pay 2.1 for it and justify 2.1, and that's where you can get 2 different valuations. Just the same way you can get 2 different bidders stopping at 2 different prices for the valuation.
Right. Yeah. I had that question later on coming up about like why sometimes different valuers value our properties, differently, because my understanding would have been that they have a strict set of guidelines, or like you can say, instructions that, like a certain set of guidelines basically to value. So you are essentially saying that it can be still be like a bit subjective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And usually homes that are a little bit unique, a little bit problematic, have a few things wrong with it. They tend to have a bigger difference in value because I might put more risk on it and say to the bank, well, be careful because this property has a lot of things wrong with it. It's in poor condition. It's not on the best street. It has 4 bedrooms, but one of the bedrooms is really tiny and it doesn't have a window and there's no garage, the carport. And I might put a little bit more heavy weight on this and value it lower. Where another valuer could see the same problems and go, well, it's not so bad. And I think it's a really good area. And I think anybody that buys it is just going to renovate it anyway. But it's got a really good size block and the house has a lot of potential. So they don't put as much risk on. So that's sometimes where it can, with homes that are a bit more problematic, you can have a bit bigger gap in the two opinions of the value. If the home is in a new house and land estate area, it's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, built last, very average condition, you should be getting pretty similar valuation. That should be pretty much because the evidence is there, the house, there's not much variation in the risk.
Right.
Yeah, so this is why if anybody is watching this, if you at any point go, I think that my home is better internally, like that property that we analyze, the home at the beginning, don't forget that the photos are from 2024. The owner could have done a massive renovation to it. They've done so many really nice things and renovated it and, done. And then you're like, I think you're comparing my home to the old photos. I decline that valuation and I really want somebody to come out physically and inspect that property. So that's why I reject it and I want the bank to send someone to physically come in. If you're not happy with the desktop valuation, please challenge it. But if the valuer physically comes out and you don't like it, it's very, very hard to challenge. So
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, moving on to the next segment. Belinda, what's the one renovation homeowners are convinced adds value, but as a valuer you don't?
Swimming pools are a big one. Okay, they will add value. Okay, so I just want to reiterate that. That example that I gave you of that house, you could see that there wasn't many people that had pools in their backyard. But if you did put a pool, you will definitely add value. But if it cost you $100,000 to put the pool in, to get the permits, to dig it out, to take out the dirt, to then get the fences and get the paving and everything else that comes with it, $100,000 is probably what a pool is worth now. You might only add 60 or 70,000. You are adding value to your home, but not as much as so. That is something that you need to be really careful. Same as a kitchen. I see so many homes where they add a new kitchen and they think, oh, it's got a kitchen, I've added value. But they put the kitchen on top of the old flooring and it still feels old and it still doesn't feel modern. And as a young buyer, first home buyer, young millennials, they want something that's new and fashionable. They're buying a home with a new kitchen on an old flooring with a terrible floor plan. It doesn't add much value as you think because the problems that were there before you put the kitchen in are the same problems that a new buyer's coming, I have to change the floor and the floor plan doesn't work and I was going to completely change it, but that means I've got to take out the kitchen, but the kitchen's new, so I'm going to walk away from the home. If you're going to do it right, change the floor, change the kitchen and change it to where it's much more functional instead of just taking out one problem and putting a nicer problem in, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. All lovely. Right. All right. We'll do a quick rapid fire round now. So you just say if it's like worth it, overrated, or it depends. Yeah. So
Okay.
start.
Let's go.
Swimming pools.
Twinkles, it depends. Always adds value, but sometimes not as much as the cost.
Right. Solar panels.
Solar panels, I have solar panels, always add value. But again, if you just put it in, will add pretty much the same value as the cost. But don't forget, solar panels depreciate and then you got to replace them after 10 years. So if you've got 10-year-old solar panels, it's probably worth it.
Landscape.
100%. That's the big one. Big one. Remember I said earlier, the first thing you see when you look at a property is the appearance of the home, and landscaping helps the appearance. So love landscaping for return. Love it.
Outdoor entertaining.
Love it. Love it. You saw the example of that home that didn't have the alfresco, okay? Took that into consideration. That's one thing I looked at, because if you're buying a property, and this is one thing I said earlier where people make a mistake. They go outside and they go, oh, this is a nice yard. Not thinking, well, where am I going to sit when I want to barbecue or I want to go outside? There's no covered area. Look at these little things. So very important. Very, very important.
Premium kitchen.
Premium kitchen. If it's done correctly in the right home, yes. But if you're that home that those homes that we analyze, you put a premium kitchen in there, you're probably not going to get the right money. They need a very nice kitchen, but not a premium. So make sure premium kitchen for premium property, good quality average kitchen for good quality average homes.
Smart home.
A smart home. Only do it if you want. It's not going to add value unless it's a premium home. Like I'm talking $10 million where the market really, they expect it, right? I don't expect a smart home in, in Trugania. Does that make sense? Like if I came in and I clap my hands and the lights turn on and the blinds are opening and the lights are on an app on my phone and the house next door doesn't, it's nice, but am I going to pay an extra 20 grand for it? Probably not.
Walk-in room.
Yes. Yep. But sometimes be careful, because the space in a walk-in room and the amount of square meters it takes in the property doesn't necessarily have the same storage as a really good built-in along a big wall. But everybody wants a built-in, so that's a yeah.
Right. And EV charger.
Ooh, not necessarily going to add value, because not everybody has an EV car, but it may make the difference between two buyers, depending if they want the house with the EV charger versus the house without the EV charger. They'll always go with the EV charger if they've got as they are.
But isn't it like nowadays lot many households are buying EVs? EVs are becoming more and more common, right? So but still it depends in this case.
It depends. Yeah, a lot of people don't have EVs, so they don't care. And if you've got an EV, it's a few $1,000s to get the electrician to come out and install it, and to get it all up and running. It's not like it's a $20,000 or $30,000 investment. And sometimes if you've got a Tesla, you just want a Tesla charger, or if you know what I mean, like they might pull out you won't get a budget one. Like that's a pretty average one. You want a higher, better quality. Maybe you own a Porsche and you want a special Porsche one. I don't know. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Oh, nice. So moving on to the next chapter, right? If I was selling my house next month and only had enough money for 1 or 2 improvements, where would you spend it, and where wouldn't you?
Landscaping, painting, new window blinds if they need it, new flooring. So if the carpet and the floorboards are tired, please replace them. So just refreshing, big refresh is definitely somewhere where we, like that property that I first analysed, how I said the carpet looked a bit old and the painting and the blinds, the blinds were fine, but they were like a mauvey colour. If we got white blinds, like I'm not saying you need white, but new paint, new carpet, new blinds, and spent a little bit more money on like just really doing the landscaping. It's not a big outlay, but I think it will really uplift that property. And then I think you in that home, for instance, if you replace the kitchen and the bathroom, you will really get your. So just don't. This is when I came back for the mistakes that people make. They think a new kitchen and bathroom will add value. They think that's what they think, but that's not what actually does. So thinking what something does and what actually does can be two different things, and that's where mistakes are made. So make sure you understand that, hey, if I had 20 grand, I wouldn't be putting a new kitchen in. Nothing wrong with the kitchen. Definitely maybe be putting in new floor lines and a little bit of, and I reckon that, you know, you can do it smart and get some change out of, 20, 30 grand.
Right. Okay. And if you were to choose as an investor between new and existing property, like an old or established, which one do you usually prefer to go with?
Caveat, I put my hands up. I hate brand new and off the plan. Unless it's done right. Units, be very careful with units. I value so many that I value less. Units and brand new have done very well, Devon, because the market has done very well in the last 5 years. The market is not doing very well at the moment. So if you bought something last year when the market was here, the valuer is going to value it here, and then you might have a shortfall. That is always the risk with brand new. Unless your strategy really needs you to negative gear it, really needs you to have all those government incentives, then it's okay. Otherwise, if I bought, for instance, that property that you just showed me, yeah, I know I can move a tenant straight in, still got really good depreciation because, I do depreciation schedules. I'm qualified to be, yeah. So that one's still got depreciation on it quite a bit. So just because you can't claim plant and equipment, there's still maybe, I don't know, 10 grand of depreciation in that. It's huge versus maybe 13 if it had all the appliances in it. So it's not a huge difference. You can add value to it where you can't really add value to brand new because it's brand new. So buying old has a different strategy, but I think long's got more opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And what's the biggest mistake have you seen people make when building a new home?
Building a new home. I built a new home, so this home I'm sitting in. I inspected so many properties, and there were times when I would go in and I'm supposed to value the home, and I'm taking notes for myself, going, don't do that, that's terrible, that's no good. And then absorbing all that, because don't forget, as a valuer, I don't just value the home, I see it at the slabs. I see it at the frame stage. I release this to the bank. I come at the, the practical completion and I tell the bank, yes, it is almost done, release the funds to the builder. So that's the valuer's. So I see it from the floor plan to the finished product. So I see all the mistakes off the piece of paper. And for a brand new home, I would say it is not having that beautiful access from the kitchen, living, dining to the outside, and the outside is facing the right orientation for the sun. Because that sunlight that comes, how it's our sun-filled home, sunshine, and you know what? It doesn't matter your age or your background or your culture. Having a sunny home or a home that's got a great, I know in the Asian culture, feng shui is a big thing, but it also transcends through all cultures and generations, the flow of the home. So make sure that the home isn't jagged. You don't have the laundry that's blocking the view to the backyard, and then the kitchen is tucked away. Having a floor plan that flows really well, having a well thought out floor plan is so important. If you are going from a project builder, I built with a project builder, please push back and ask to get changes. I don't like that. I don't like that. Change this, change that. Do it early, because once they build and you move in, it's simple. Push back earlier. Get someone maybe like myself or whoever to review it and go, what do you think? Should I move this? But really at the beginning, push back. Make sure it's exactly what you want. And inspect open homes until you figure out exactly what you want.
Right. And does your preference for established property be different for someone who is like a first home buyer?
It depends. See, investment properties in the home that you live in are two very different things. Yeah. So that property that we analyze at the beginning are perfect for an investor, okay? Because you really, even if you did paint it and fix up the carpet, it doesn't really matter for an investor. Like it's, as long as the carpet, it doesn't need to be, as long as the carpet's clean. as long as the painting on the wall is not soiled, doesn't smell, it's not offensive, as long as the blinds work and it's a good quality build, which it looked like it was. There was nothing in there to say there's a hole in the wall, the carpet sort of, stain. I would say that's a great investment. But as a buyer, I don't meet. Okay, let's just say me. I don't like a black kitchen preference, right? Or I prefer my bedroom at the back, not at the front. Like, as a buyer, you can be more picky, but as an investor, as long as the home suits your criteria. So don't treat and then if you're a buyer, don't treat the investment property like you would a home that you would live in. Just make sure it suits the right criteria for a great rental, rather than paying more because you like it and you're going to get the exact same rent. You'll get the same rent for something a little bit lower too, like it's maybe $10, but you're spending $100,000 more because, I like a white kitchen. I don't care if you like a white kitchen, you're going to get the same rent for the white kitchen or the black kitchen. Just get the home that's better for you as an investor. Don't worry about whether you like it. You can change it later, but for now, figure out what hat you're wearing, the investor hat or the owner hat,
Belinda, what's one red flag in a property listing that most buyers miss?
There's a couple. I think it just depends on what you're looking for. I think if you are buying a home and it's for yourself and you want to live in it, do not be embarrassed about opening every single drawer and door of a kitchen or a bathroom. A few weeks ago, I inspected a home for a client that was looking to buy, because I do I help them, and it was opening everything. And I'm like, I wouldn't do this for a valuation, but you're buying this home. And I opened up the cabinet above the oven, and a quarter, it nearly hit me in the head. It wasn't connected. It was just hanging there. And I said, write that down. And I make my clients write everything down on an inspection. Write that down and make sure that is, if you're putting an offer in, that needs to be fixed by it. So for instance, open and close every window. Some old homes, they paint over the timber. You can't open them up. Open and close every window. Open and close every built-in. Open and if you're serious and you put an offer in, turn all the taps on. See the pressure. Get a building in pest. And if there's too much issues with the home, that's how you know sometimes, is it really worth it? Because you're going to have to spend $100,000 just to get it to a standard. That's not necessarily going to add any value, because no one's going to pay you more just because that cabinet opened and closed, but you have to spend $100 getting a tradie out, getting new hinges, installing that example. So if you get a home, go through everything and make sure that if you're working with a buyer's agent, make sure your buyer's agent goes through everything and get a video walkthrough of them opening and closing everything, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. You try on a pair of shoes before you buy it, right? You try on the dress, you try on pants. You need to try the home. It's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Now moving on to our next segment, it's more about talking about what's going on right now with the trends and all. So what's the biggest thing happening in the Australian property market right now that everyday Aussies should actually be paying attention to?
Stock on the market. Stock on the market, because a property I learned this my first 2 weeks at uni when I was starting to be a valuer. Okay, I just finished high school. I had my pen, I had my paper, I was writing down notes, and I remember we drew a square, and then we had one line that went like that. We had one line that went like that, and the lecturer said, one is supply and one is demand. Okay, and where they meet up, that's what a property is worth. So think about a fruit shop. If you have 10 apples and 5 buyers, and everyone is trying to sell an apple, buy my apple, and there's 5 of us, and I'm like, I don't really care, because if I don't buy yours, I can always buy them. They're probably going to lower their price until you go, okay, that's probably the best apple, and that's a really fair price. If you have 5 apples and 10 buyers, which is sort of what's happening on the market now, that's why we haven't had a complete crash in the market, because we still don't have a hell of a lot of stock, and you only have 5 apples and 10 buyers, then you got 2 buyers for 1 apple, and you're still going to fight for it, even though you sit back. think about it with houses. If you start seeing more houses pop up into the market, then you're going to have more opportunity for buyers to sit back and go, I'm going to wait and see, versus like just buying and grabbing anything and anywhere. So watch the stock levels, attend auctions, attend open homes, look at the amount of people going through, ask for feedback, have a really good relationship with your buyer's agent, with the selling agent, and just talk to them like a normal person. Don't try and be, I'm going to play games, I'm going to pretend I'm not interested, but I really am. Let them know you're interested. Talk to them. Just be very open. Stay on them. Call them constantly. What else do you have coming on the market? Anything off market for me? Just what's coming up? And if they start saying, oh, we've got about 3 or 4 properties coming up, but every agent is saying that, wait till all the properties flood the market. You might have more opportunity to then negotiate, because heaps of properties are on the market. So watch the stock levels.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Is there any trend going on right now in the market which is concerning you?
Buyer's agent. I love some. I don't like a, and I don't apologize for saying that, because some agents are very quiet and they're desperate, and they're going to tell you what they want you to hear so they can get your business, and they're going to buy you rubbish. Okay. So a lot of buyer's agents are banging on about buying brand new. I'm not saying I would never buy brand new, but just be really careful. And I think, hopefully people that are watching this are pretty educated already, because they've been following you and they know a lot. They kind of know what is good and bad, but some buyer's agents make like, I'm going to say something cheeky, okay? Just because you put glitter on some poo, it's still poo. Doesn't matter how it looks. Does that make sense? So you get glitter on shit and still shit. Sorry, just say it. But that's how some buyer's agents are advertising some properties, just because they're going to get a commission from the builder. Just be careful, whatever. Also, a lot of buyer's agents are flogging and really pushing commercial property. Okay, it's commercial property, and then you can buy it in your super, and Again, please be really careful. Commercial is, my husband works in commercial. I'm in residential, so we've got a lot of experience. Please be careful. Don't just buy it because it's commercial and the yield is really high. If the tenant, because if we're coming into a bit of a recession, the economy is slowing, our GDP is unemployment is increasing. Never been harder to be a small business. All these things mean that the demand for rental in a little retail space, in an office space, could be coming back. It's been strong for a long time. If you have a if a residential property, you're gonna lease it in 2-3 weeks. Commercial property could be 2-3 months. Do you have enough money to pay for that shortfall in rent if your tenant vacates? You can't get another tenant in there for 3 months. Please be careful with commercial. So they're the 2 trends that I'm seeing at the moment, is buyer's agents really pushing one or the other. And I can see there's a bit of desperation behind it. There had been some commercial buyer's agents that have been doing this for a long time. Okay, same as some residential buyer's agents. The ones that have been doing this forever, that have really good experience, I would just really take my time to fish them out, and pretty quickly the bad ones. So yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh no, that was a very insightful answer. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Now, all right. What's one property headline or trend that Australians that completely misunderstood recently?
I think a lot of people, again, they did this because the buyer's agent said it, their mortgage broker said it. A lot of people bought property in trust, and a lot of people are now really concerned about the 1 July 2027, because every single investment property will need to get valued. And a lot of people are thinking of selling their property before this date, because after that date, the capital gains tax and the negative gearing is going to completely change, right? Because they've got a grace period for negative gearing until that date. And then after that date, you can no longer, it's purchased after. There's rules around that 1 July date. So a lot of people have misunderstood that, and they're panicking, and they're going to be selling an investment property that I don't believe they should be selling. I think they should perhaps look at whole strategy long term, and they're selling it when maybe they might regret it, or they don't understand the rules completely, and they're going to be in a worse off financial position because of this date that they don't really okay. So this is where if you have lost confidence in your accountant, don't think that they're giving you the right advice. There are so many great accountants out there. Get the opinion of a great accountant with one that really truly understands the room. Because if an accountant is telling you to sell your property, if anybody's telling you to sell your property, please get a second opinion. Talk to someone that's just going to analyze it independently. I mean, I'm not saying to use me, I'm not saying to come, but that's what I do. I analyze it independently, give the opinion back to the client. I never tell you to, but I say it's actually, it's not a good investment. But there are a lot of people going, you should sell. Yeah. So just be really careful that you really truly understand the rules, because yes, I'm going to swear, yes, they're a bit shit, but they're probably not as bad as you think, and they might actually help you long term. So don't panic, don't go and sell an asset because you don't understand the rules at that 1 July
Right.
change.
Yeah. Do you have any comments on the news popping up about our Prime Minister Albanese selling off his property just before announcing the policy changes?
I don't know. People are like, he knew it was coming. He can do what he wants because like life happens, and let him go. He did nothing, like whether he knew or didn't know. That's what we as Australians love about this country. We were able to grow our wealth by playing the game. The game was you buy a property, you can negative gear it if you want. We knew that there was that 50% discount for the capital gains. We knew the rules and we were playing the game. And he told us at the last election, asked him 500 times, are you going to make changes to negative gearing? No. Are you going to make changes? No. Are you going to make changes to negative gearing? Stop asking me. I'm not making changes to negative gearing. And then what happens? He makes changes to negative gearing, acts as if he's doing it in the best interest of the country, except he changes it on property, he changes shares, he changes it on business, he changes it on. So if you're helping the government, if you're helping the everyday Australians, why aren't you just ring fencing it around property? Because then we can be like, all right, we hate it, we don't agree it, but in some small way, like we understand what you're trying to do, even though we don't agree. When you go after property and shares and business and Pokemon cards, then you think, what are you really truly doing it for the Australian people? You lying to us, you're not in our best interest. Then you start questioning everything he does. And for that, I have to start. You have to start asking, and you have to stop losing confidence in the government because you don't trust them. And how can you trust a government that lies and trust a government that when you ask them questions, and we've seen this time and time again, Deven, you've seen it. They ask people in Parliament to explain the changes, and you can see this is in their brain. They're just making up answers because what's coming out of their mouth doesn't make sense, and the experts are going, "Hang on a minute, that's not right. That's not how it works. This is not giving us a lot of cost." So I would love to have confidence in my government, okay? Because it's a beautiful country. We all, I want to pay my tax. My kids go to a public school. I go to, a public hospital when they're sick. I want my money to go to that, but I also want to know that my money is going to the right people that I'm not feeling like they're lying. Then what else are they lying? Anyway, that was a long-winded answer, but that's how I feel about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is more regarding you as a creator. So the most followed property valuer in Australia, right? You're Australia, and what made you think people would actually watch a property valuer online?
So I started my TikTok account, I think in 2021. On TikTok, mind you, when everybody was on TikTok dancing, and I'm a professional. I don't dance. I don't even do music. I think I did one video where there was a trend where it was like do like that. There was like, and then you'd have like writing, so it wasn't necessarily dancing. So I do trend stuff. But what made me think that people would listen to me is because a little bit of ego and a little bit of arrogance, only because valuers are the only property professional, Deven, that are considered professionals in the property space. Meaning, if you ever went to and I don't say this with any ego or any arrogance, but if you ever go to court, it's always the opinion of the valuer. Okay, if you get divorced, what's the house worth? Get a valuation. You need to pay capital gains tax and stamp duty. We need a valuation. We need every property valued at 1 July next year. We need a valuation. And I kept hearing a lot of opinions from buyers agents and property managers, real estate agents and mortgage brokers. And I saw an accountant, I saw a tax lawyer, I saw like everybody else, but I was like, where's the valuer? Where's the opinion of the valuer? And then I would hear what the buyer's agent would say, what the real estate agent would say, what the interior designer would say. There's shows like The Block and All They Renovate. There's always an interior designer or a builder or an architect or a landscaper. I'm like, where's the valuer? Okay. The judges, there was a buyer's agent. Where's the valuer? So I went, I'll do some videos talking about my opinion of the valuer. And this is where the little bit of the arrogance came in. I was like, because not me, Belinda, but me, a valuer. That's why my TikTok account doesn't have my name. It just has the valuer. It's very important that people know how a valuer thinks, because a valuer is a professional that you must rely on. If the government puts a highway through your house, the value is important. So I wanted to represent valuers. I didn't want to represent myself. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want TikTok followers for me. I wanted just for my profession, because my profession's the best. Yeah. And I'm like, we're the smartest. We know everything. The profession, not me. So, and I was a little bit embarrassed because I know how smart a lot of valuers are, that most brilliant people, they value very deeply. And I wanted to present my profession in a really easy to understand way, because I know that it can get really, sometimes it can get quite high end. And I just wanted to present it in a really easy to understand way. And people seem to like that. And I just slowly started building my followers. And that's what made me go out on my own, because I got a lot of questions. Can you do this? Can you help me here? Can I have a valuation? Can you do a depreciation? Can you look at my floor plan? What adds value? What doesn't? And I sat right here. I turned to my husband, who was also working from home during COVID. And I said, babe, do you think people will pay me for my opinion? And he's like, try. So 3 years ago, nearly 4 years ago, I tried, and I'm still here. So, yeah.
Wow, that was very, very insightful. Very interesting as well. Lovely. And just one last piece of advice for businesses who are looking to grow their brand to level like you, huge following. Any one piece of advice?
So at the beginning, I was too. I was very scared, okay? Because like I said, valuers are very, very, very smart. So I kept thinking, what are they going to think of me? Am I going to embarrass them? Are they going to be like, this girl she's acting like she's the valuer and she's talking? Is she going to tarnish our profession? So I was extremely scared and nervous, but I didn't. That's why when I said that the ego, it wasn't ego for me. It was ego for my profession, because I thought we were so good that people needed to hear about what we did. And I actually put my ego down, and I was like, I'm going to do this for the greater good of the people, to understand what we do so they can understand. Because I kept hearing, valuers undervalue everything. Valuers, you get 3 different valuers and 3 different opinions. You don't know what you're doing. And I get so mad. And then I'd hear people in podcasts saying, valuers are idiots. Valuers are a waste of money. And I'd be like, you don't know what we do. So I wanted to go out and set the record straight. And here I am even talking about it today. So if you are a business and don't go out to promote yourself, go out to promote how you can help your audience, because that audience is potentially going to be your client one day. And if you are genuinely trying to help them and educate them and do the best for them, they will watch you, and then they eventually will gain trust in your brand if you're genuine and you're not out there trying to just push your own ego. They will come to you. Like your podcast, Deven, you're doing a great job because you're getting experts like myself, like your other guests, to try and educate your audience. So your audience will be like, well, Devin always gets great people on because I feel like he's trying his best to educate us, to grow his community. I haven't shut up this whole time, by the way, I've been talking, but you have been very patient and talk. You haven't sat there. I've done other podcasts where I haven't been able to get a word in because the podcast just wants to talk about how smart they are and what they know. And oh, in my opinion, I did this and I did that. And then they're trying to catch me out in some questions. Does that make sense? You,
Yeah, that's strange. Yeah, I mean, the whole podcast guest is that you get them to talk a lot and you quiet and, get their value.
yeah. So you've been great. So thank you. But and you can always tell when people, you can see the ego come through because they want to be, look how smart I am. I'm challenging the valuer. Uh, But I'm like, I'm too old for this. I know how to look past all the bullshit, so I can, for the content. But yeah, so if you're a business, it's so important you have to put your face and you have to talk, and you will feel scared and you will feel embarrassed and you will feel like, what am I doing? Please kill me. Just keep going, and it will eventually get easier and easier and easier. So
Yeah, no, thank you,
yes.
Belinda. Thank you very, very much for being so generous with your time and for sharing the knowledge with our audience. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.